Hello and welcome back everyone, we are of course back, and today as you can see, we are of course back on Hypixel Skyblock, and I know it's been a bit longer than usual, sorry about that, but we are finally here. Now, as some of you may know, I recently posted a new community post asking what you guys think I should do for my next guide, and it was an overwhelming win for the mid-game gear guide, as you can probably tell by the title of this video. So we're going to be talking about the best weapons that you're going to be wanting to go for in the mid-game. So say that in between Dragon and Necron armor stage, where you're just kind of floor 5, floor 6, around there, and there's so many options for weapons, and say you want to be a mage, say you want to be a healer, say you want to be a berserker, say you want to be an archer, say you want to be a tank. I don't have the two options for those with me right now, but there is a weapon for basically anything you want to do. So, today we're going to be talking about it. But, before we get started, if this video helps you at all, definitely make sure to subscribe. We are getting closer every day to 1,000 subscribers, and as I've said, the giveaway for that one is going to be massive in comparison to my other ones, and I can't wait to get to it. So, make sure to subscribe if this helps at all, and yeah, enjoy the video. Now, as we all know, there are the 5 dungeon classes that you can, of course, go as when you're in a dungeon. There is Berserk, Mage, healer, archer, and tank. Now, don't question my low levels, I know they're low, I don't do dungeons too much lately, but the main thing we're going to be talking about once again is the weapons you're going to be wanting to use for these. Now, obviously, Berserk, you can see a lot of melee damage and a lot of speed, and for that, you're going to generally want anything with a high damage, and, you know, it doesn't really matter too much about the ability that you have with it, just the damage is what you're looking for. So generally something like a Shadow Fury, this thing shreds basically anything in dungeons that I do. I can do anywhere from like 1.5 to 4 million damage with this, depending on what I'm fighting. And yeah, that basically one-hits almost anything except for a mini-boss. So the Berserk mixed with a weapon that has a high one-hit damage is a great combo. But say you want to be something like an archer. As I said in the beginning, you know, there's a weapon for everyone. And there's a specific weapon that most people around this point in the game generally try to go to. And that weapon is, of course, the Juju Shortbow. Now this thing, it costs a lot to get, it costs a lot to buy the carries for Enderman Slayer, or a lot of time to just do it yourself if you don't want to pay for it. And all around, this is a massive investment. But it is an investment that is very much so worth it. I had one of these on my old profile. I have one of them now, but as you can see, I don't have the requirement, so I don't use it. But if you can get this thing, and if you can level it up, this thing will demolish basically anything in your way when you're in a dungeon. So, if you're trying to be an archer, you know, if you like having a skeleton pet, or wither skeleton, I forget exactly which is better for archer, and if you know, are just running through shooting everything in sight, then a Juju Shortbow is going to be the perfect option for you. Or, you know, there's obviously the Terminator, but that's very late game. That is certainly not mid game. So, basically, in short, the Juju Shortbow, it's expensive, but it is worth every penny if you are trying to be an archer and you want to be able to demolish anything in your way. Anyway, now comes the big one. Now comes the big question of which other options for Berserk should you go with, because yeah, I mentioned the Shadow Fury, but you don't want to rely on trying to get a 50 to 70 million coin sword when you're, say, even in the beginning of the mid-game. Say you're just getting out of floor 4 and you're getting into floor 5, say you got your Shadow Assassin armor, but you do not have the coins for something like this. Well, I have you covered in that case as well, because of the classic, the Livid Dagger. This thing is an amazing weapon, it has been for so long. This is generally what I get as soon as I can, you know, use it, pretty much. Because the difference between something like an aspect of the dragons and this thing is immense. This thing is going to always get a critical. Any critical hits from behind your enemy are going to deal double the damage, which can be insane after a while. And you will attack insanely fast because of that added bonus attack speed. So, all around, this thing's absolutely incredible. But here comes the big fun part. Say that you have a lot more coins than that 50 to 70 million range for the Shadow Fury, and say you already have the Shadow Fury, but you want an upgrade and you definitely don't have enough for something like a Hyperion or anything, well, there's an option for that too, before floor 7. Now that option is of course the Giant Sword. This thing is a hard hitter. This thing hits like a truck, it does so much damage, it costs a lot of coins as you can see there, but if you're really, doing dungeons a lot, if you've got a good minion setup, if you're flipping a lot, if you're making a lot of coins, then this thing definitely is a hard hitter. And that ability is going to hit not like a truck, but like a train. That thing, as you can see right there, 131,000 damage. That is insane. And that actually has a pretty big range for the attack. So it has the good area of effect, it has great damage. So if you're stuck in floor 6 and you want something better than a Shadow Fury, and for some reason you have a quarter of a billion coins, I should say, then the Giant Sword is always there in the auction house, and trust me, that thing's gonna be amazing. And, as you can see here, honestly, not for very much more, you can get these things essentially completely maxed out. Right here, One for All Withered with max potato books and an Art of War. It's a lot of coins, but if you don't feel like putting that all on your own, that would be a good buy. It's only 40 million more coins almost for not a ton worth of upgrades. And next up, we're going to be talking about the Healer class. Now, first thing to say about the Healer, if you're trying to be a healer, good on you, thank you for your service. There are nowhere near enough healers in the dungeons, and it is just amazing to actually get a healer because, they're a healer. It helps a ton to have one in your team. So yeah, in short, thank you for being a healer if you do, and if you're looking for a weapon, then I would suggest the Zombie Sword of any sort, but specifically the highest tier of the Zombie Sword, which, as you can see right here, is indeed the Florid Zombie Sword, which is what I have right here. And this is going to heal you a ton, and it's going to heal players within 8 blocks from you, and that's going to be amazing too, because you can spam this for 5 charges, which doesn't sound like too much, but you can instantly fully heal yourself pretty much, or deal a good amount of healing towards your teammates. And if you're using an item that gives you some mending, the mending stat, then you're going to be healing even more than what it's saying right here. Because mending is going to increase the amount of healing you output to your teammates, which is going to help a ton if you're just going around spamming this around your teammates trying to help them out. But I would still suggest having some sort of weapon with it other than the Zombie Sword, since honestly, it's pretty good, but it's nothing too special, as you can see right there. And so yeah, I'd still suggest having a Dagger or a Shadow Fury or whatever else you may have. Basically, this is going to be more of a healing item than a weapon, in most people's playing style, that is. If you happen to use it as a weapon and nothing else, then, feel free to do that, obviously. But generally, there are, of course, better options for weapons. Whether you want to be a battle mage or a battle healer with some sort of strong one-hit weapon, or if you want to be a healing mage with a Glacier Scythe or something, that is up to you. But I would still definitely suggest having an extra weapon, on standby for if you need to do a bit more damage. Now, next up, we are, of course, actually going to be talking about the tank class, because I'm keeping the mage for last, because there's going to be a lot to talk about for that one. But for the tank, honestly, there's nothing really to talk about. You don't really need to be attacking, so you don't really need a specific weapon as much. Generally, you obviously still want a weapon, just like with a healer, but there's nothing specialized for a tank, other than an adaptive blade, but that's kind of more early game, since I believe you can get that at floor 2. So I would generally suggest just basically going with what you would if you were a berserk or whatever else, and mainly focusing on your armor, because I don't believe there's any weapons, once again other than the adaptive blade, that are going to actually help you as a tank. So might as well deal as much damage as you possibly can while tanking all of the damage that you possibly can as well. Now, there are generally about 3 to 4 different main mage weapons that you could go for around this point in the game, and I'm going to start with the most expensive option. Generally, the most expensive option someone's going to go for at this point in the game is something like a Glacier Scythe. Now this can go anywhere from 51 to about 80 million for an alright one. Like, for example, right over here you got 72 million for pretty maxed one. Mine right here, pretty maxed as well. I bought it for about 77 million, and I'm a fan of it. It does a great amount of damage, it shoots very fast, it's very spammable, and it even has a nice AoE effect, which helps a ton for clearing. And I'm not even a big mage, like I don't have a great mage setup. My mage setup right now is an Aurora set, which I can't even dungeonize, so if I can do alright with clearing in a dungeon with that on, imagine what you could do with something like pretty maxed out Wise Dragon Armor. You're going to be dealing so much damage, you're going to be clearing everything out like it's nothing, and you're going to be having a great time. But this one, of course, does come with that massive price tag, so it's not for everyone. But if you do need something that's a bit cheaper in terms of actual coins, then might I suggest the Spirit Scepter. Now this thing is a classic for a reason. It does good damage, it is going to shoot basically homing bats, and they're going to explode, so they're going to be dealing good damage to basically anything around them, and they'll even follow your aim. But this one, what it lacks in actual coin price, as you can see there, it gains in mana cost. So for example right here, my Glacier Scythe, I know it has ultimate wise 5, but it only costs 38 mana. Whereas, even if I get an ultimate wise 5 Spirit Scepter, that's still 100 mana. So if you don't have absolute tons of mana, then you're going to struggle with spamming this thing or using it a lot all around. But it's a lot cheaper once again, and you've got, you know, a pretty similar damage. So if you're on a budget, and if you have good mana, then this is definitely a great option for you, and I would entirely suggest it. Also, I should probably mention, I would show how it actually functions, but I do not have it right now. But I will show how the Glacier Scythe functions in case if any of you want to know. So, say I'm aiming at that torch over there, I can snipe it with a very accurate, very fast line of ice. And when that line of ice hits, it, as I said, will explode. And these projectiles will pierce basically anything in their way, other than the floor, of course. So, that is how the Glacier Scythe will function. Now, say you are on even more of a budget than that, then there is still a pretty nice option for you, albeit it's a lot earlier game, and you can even get it at floor 1, but it still holds up until it still holds up until the Spirit Scepter and Glacier Scythe, essentially. So, if you are on that budget, then you can always go for the classic Vibonzo staff, not mask. And this thing essentially is going to work like a Dreadlord sword, if any of you have used that before. And I can demonstrate that right now with a Dreadlord sword right here, because I don't have the Vibonzo staff either. But basically, going to shoot a projectile, and then it's going to explode when it actually hits something. Now, this may not be looking like it's exploding, but if I go over to some actual enemies, then as you can see, it's going to take both of them out, and that AoE is going to help with that. So essentially, if you get the Vibonzo staff, it is just a more damaging, better version of this, but it is a lot more expensive. Now there is one more weapon that I have for you for the mage class, but the reason I'm mentioning it last is you can't actually dungeonize it, just like with the Aurora armor that I showed a bit ago. So it's not going to be too great in the dungeon, but outside of a dungeon and in early dungeons, it will still hit like a truck. And for those of you who haven't been able to tell so far, I'm of course talking about the Aurora Staff. Now this thing, once again, you cannot dungeonize it, so this is essentially the strongest it can get, and that's still pretty amazing. I know it doesn't show a damage, but the cheapest one, as you can see right here, about 1.7 million, and, you know, you may be looking at these stats thinking, huh, that's not that good, that's actually pretty bad. 38 damage, 18 strength, and I have my lion pet on right now, so in reality that's just 20 damage. But the big important aspect comes from the actual, using of it, not just what it says. So, I will actually demonstrate this one here for you too, so you can see just how much damage this can actually do. Now, I am not in a mage setup at all right now. This is not a maxed out Aurora Staff or anything. It's not, super good. I still have my Lion Pet on. I don't have any sort of mage Power Stone setup or anything. So this is entirely with my normal Berserk setup. And it does 93,000 damage. Now, if I switch over to my Aurora set and then do that again, that's 206,000 damage. So, this thing may not say it in its description, as you can see here once again, but as I said, it hits like an absolute truck, and once again, this isn't maxed out at all. These are just some very simple enchants. So, if you're trying to just go around, being a mage through most of Skyblock other than the dungeons, or once again, early dungeons, but I can't suggest something that isn't dungeonized for later dungeons, then this thing will do great for you. Because, I mean, that's 206,000 damage. Basically, no normal thing you run into, except for in the Nether or in the Void Sepulchre, is gonna have enough health to take that. Say, a Zealot Bruiser, you're killing that thing like 4 times over. No problem at all. The only issue with this thing is that its ability does have a 1-second cooldown. So, you can't really spam it, but, you can still shoot it pretty quick. And the closer you are, the more damage you'll do. And similarly, the farther you are, the less damage you will do. As you can see there, I did 190k, but if I get right up close and personal, I did 206,000 again. So, this is one of the more unique weapons, and yeah, it's another budget option, as you saw with it being about 1.7 million. And once again, if you're going around trying to take out single enemies, then this thing's going to be one of your best options in the main parts of Skyblock. There are, of course, many other weapons too. These are only a select few. But generally, as I showed you, the various items on the auction house from the dungeon are going to be more useful for the dungeon generally than the Slayer or other items that you're going to get by now. So, for example, the stuff that you would get through a collection, such as the explosive bow. For this one, you need a ton of gunpowder collection, and by the time that you get there, unless if you have a bunch of creeper minions set up and all that, then it's going to be pretty late into the game, most likely, or not late into the game anyway, but late into your early to mid game, and you should be already starting to try to get a Juju short bow anyway, is essentially the point that I'm getting at. Now that is actually going to be all for today. I know this was a relatively short video, but as I said, I'm going to be doing another guide just like this for the armor that you're going to want to pair with these weapons and with the pets that I mentioned in my pet guide recently. And I may even be doing another guide for just random other items that could be helpful, such as, talismans or other stuff similar to that. Maybe equipment, for example, since you never want to be running around with Ender equipment forever. That's obviously not that great. But, with all that said, thank you all very much for watching. If this video has helped you, definitely make sure to subscribe once again, and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of more top tier guides like this. And if the video helped you as well, make sure to leave a like. It helps out a ton, and it helps get this video to more people who might need it. And if you have anything to say, maybe any weapons I forgot or left out, then make sure to comment as well. Or even if you just want to say your favorite weapon in Skyblock, make sure to leave a comment about that as well. With that though, thank you all very much for watching. Till next time everyone, and goodbye.